So if we look at youth development, and I'm probably going to stand in the way of everybody, I guess. I'll try to move. I haven't mastered the art of standing still for any length of time. If I could give that kid something in terms of physical capabilities, what would it be? Now, we'll all give different reasons, but undoubtedly, if we can make that athlete move better, and what I mean by move better is what we would traditionally think of speed, agility, as well as the more functional movement screens, I think we can give them the capacity to play pretty much any game. So if you look at a young man of that age, he could probably turn his hand to rugby, he could probably turn his hand to basketball, to the Gaelic games if we actually played those in Wales, and so on, because these movement capacities pretty much play a role in most of the sports that we play. Think of the kids who are the stars on your team, and apart from the giants, the Des outlines, the kids who are 3 years in terms of development higher, most of the time it comes out the quick ones, the agile ones, the guys that move well. And whether we go into tennis, whether we go into football, whether we go into rugby, those are the kind of things that we're getting. So my question is, are we developing them in our youth athletes? And if so, are there ways in which we can just add little bits in that will just make sure that everything that they do can transfer into games? So that ultimately is my question, is what I'm doing helping my athletes, or am I just getting them better to do various drills? So if we want to take a journey, we're taking this athlete on a journey from complete beginner, hopefully into senior sport, then we need to know where we're going. If I want a journey, I want to put my sat nav, the first thing it asks me is enter your destination. I'm not sure that we sometimes think of speed and agility in that way, because we tend to think as scientists. Quite often, we miss the context of things. So if we have a look at definitions, the ability to explosively brake, change direction, and accelerate, that's a classic textbook definition of agility. Where does it lead us? It probably leads us into drills where we do exactly that. We accelerate, we decelerate, we brake, we change direction. But are we doing that in a way that is relevant to the game? So where that has gone to is the concept of reactive agility, a rapid whole body movement in reaction to a stimulus. But have a look at that drill. Okay, the picture's not too... Would you actually go and then go back the opposite? I don't think you do. The interesting thing is how we laugh at that. But that's out there. That's what people are doing, because suddenly we're talking about reactive agility. So I use my game speed, where I look at context movement. So we look, first of all, at how is that movement reflected in the game. And then I work back from that. And to me, this brings me in a completely different picture. Instead of being closed, I have to look at my athlete's ability to actually play the game. Now, science and strength and conditioning scientists have undoubtedly made a massive, massive contribution to strength and conditioning. I've got no arguments about that. But I think that our scientific mind sometimes sends us on the wrong route when it comes to agility. So how many of you have done agility tests? Quite a few of you. Yes? Illinois test, hexagon test, pro agility test. How do we measure it? So everything is timed. But when we go into games, and we're going to have a look at the T-tests, is time always the most critical factor? I may be able to get over here really, really quickly, and I'm so bad at changing direction that I've actually not been able to play the game. Is that effective? Now, where we're coming from there is that it may be effective on the test, but it may not be effective on the game. So which one should I be concentrating on? I think I should be concentrating on the game. But the danger is we concentrate on the test. So we're always trying to do things as quickly as we can without thinking of how it reflects. So most people would agree that Messi is quite possibly the, or one of the two greatest footballers there is out there at the moment. But is he the fastest? I wouldn't have thought so. If we put him on a 10-meter test, a 40-yard test, can you guarantee he's going to be the quickest? Probably not. Is he the strongest? Almost definitely not. Would he win all the agility tests? I don't know. I'm not convinced that he would. But can he play the game? And I think the undoubted answer is yes. So his movement capacities are not aligned to our scientific concept, but they're aligned to actually playing the game. So I love this quote. It's attributed to Einstein. I don't know if he actually said it. But basically, not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. So sometimes we get obsessed with technology. We have to measure everything. We have to put things into categories. Yet sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes we're looking at such complicated things that are composed of so many different aspects that they're almost impossible for us to measure. But does that mean they don't count? Of course not. Look at the great agile players, and can we put a figure on that's why they're good? No, it's the integration of many, many things. So I think that should lead us. So what does this kid want? If he comes to me as I'm his coach, what does he want from us? Ultimately, simple language. What does he want? Does he really want me to improve his 10-yard dash, improve his pro agility? I think it's as simple as that. He wants to play the game better. So unless my training is geared towards that, maybe I'm not doing him the service that I should. Now then, this is where, and I've made all these mistakes. Let's have a look at the destination. We've got to understand the destination. So LeBron James is pretty much the best basketball player there is at the moment. Let's have a look at what is he trying to achieve there. Offensive or defensive? It's not as clear as it should be, but that's defensive. First up, is he moving quickly? No, he's not. So what's his main concern? His main concern is stopping, dribble, shot, pass. That guy's in that triple threat position. LeBron is trying to stop that. Now then, let's have a look at some of the drills. Let's have a look at simple ladder drills. Is that helping? Have a look at his feet position. Have a look at his body position. What are we seeing? Are we seeing feet close together, everybody running high? No, we're not. If we're seeing this, are we seeing that? No, we're not. So once we take an agility point of view of things, these seem kind of logical. Once we take a game speed view of things, they suddenly seem, I wonder. So my question is, am I really helping? Am I helping this athlete play this game by developing movement patterns that don't really transfer? And I'm not so sure. And it leads us into what is effective movement. Well, number one is task-oriented. I am moving to achieve a given goal. I'm running over here in tennis. I have to get there in a position where I can plant and I can play that shot. If I get there and I can't play that shot, Doesn't matter how quickly I got there. I ain't playing the game. Then we get into words like controlled. How many guys do you see who move pretty damn quick, but there's no control of it? Are they effective? Not sure that they are. Precision, efficiency, optimal velocity. Where this takes us, how many of those are really easy to measure? Very few of them. Yet, would we know them when we see them? Yes. So quite often people will ask, right, have you got them faster? And we can give them our scores. But quite often to me, the best feedback I get is, I'm making more breaks. I'm not being beaten as easily. I'm defending far better. Very difficult to quantify, but when the player's giving me that feedback, I'm actually quite happy. I'm saying, yeah, I'm making a difference. The other thing that's on here is that great players make frequent adjustments. They're always moving their feet. They're always moving their body so that they're in a position to play the game. You watch bad players and they kind of, because they haven't kind of gone. Again, very difficult to measure, very difficult to quantify, but we need to be able to train it. So this starts to take me down a very different route. Most of us as strength and conditioning coaches, we think physically. So you want to make people move better, what do? We make them stronger. We make them more powerful, and so on. We tend to focus on very closed drills in terms of our speed and agility. Does that help? Yes. And please remember, I am not saying that we shouldn't be doing that. We should. It's still a key part. But I think when we look at it from a skill perspective, it suddenly opens out massive opportunities. The kid who on paper isn't that quick, but somehow is always in the box in the right place to score a goal. The guy who, he's not that quick. It's hard to stop. We start to explain it. We start to see these, what we think are anomalies in the context of the game. And I think that starts to help us. But it also sends us down a different route in terms of development. So if we have a look, whose eyes, if you kind of go behind that picture, whose eyes do you naturally go to? You naturally go to the offensive athlete. Yes? Have a look at the defensive athletes. How many of those are actually in a good position to play the game? They're not. And that is why this guy's solution to the problem that Lionel Messi's given him is to pull him back. So I have to look at this from an offensive point of view. I have to look at this from a defensive point of view. So as I'm looking at this, I'm taking in information. I have to perceive what's out there. I have to process that in the mind. I then have to decide what movement to use, and then I have to apply it. Now, with most of our agility work, what are we doing? I'd say most of our closed drill, we just do that. We practice the application, but we don't tell them what to do, when to do it, and so on. We're not using that information. So is there a way of improving our practices? So I think we just shift things around. Instead of taking the definition and then building that up to a drill, we actually start from the game, have a look at what they've got to do in the game, and then work the opposite way. So when I'm looking at an exercise that I'm doing, is that the way that they are going to move in basketball, volleyball, and so on? And if it's not, I need to change that drill up. So again, now I'm starting to open up various opportunities. Now, have any of you encountered what's been known as dynamic systems? It's a theory of learning whereby there isn't one way of doing it. What we essentially do is, if I've got the guy standing up here, just stand there for a minute, and he's going to start to try to thump me, I've got to come up with a solution to that problem. Now, if I'm 6 foot tall, my solution is going to be different than if I'm my height. So as it comes, I may just throw something at me slowly. All right, slowly, gently. I may go wax off. Can you see the solutions are going to change? So what I want to be able to do, I'm glad that was nice and slow. I was asking for a bit of trouble there, wasn't I? What I'm essentially doing with it, I'm giving an environment, I'm giving a task, and then I'm allowing the athlete to come up with the solution to the problem. What I then do is I understand the mechanics behind it, I understand the context behind it, and hopefully I can guide them to an effective solution. So what we're doing is planning a journey for our young athletes. We want to give them movement fundamentals. Now this has been well done. Great cooks did a great job of identifying overhead squat, lunge, single leg, stance, and so on. It hasn't been done so well for what we would call agility. Then we get into what I call sports generic skills. Now, I don't know if this term actually exists, or whether I've made it up, or stolen it from somewhere. But what I mean by a sports generic skill is that ability to do that and to actually beat somebody could transfer to multiple sports. That isn't a rugby specific action. That I could use that in basketball, I could use that in netball, I can use it in multiple sports. And then, ultimately, we need them onto the sport specific. Now, this is where, I'm not going to go through this today, because a lot of you will have seen me present on this before. My game speed system actually lists a whole lot of movements that start with acceleration and max speed. Then they look at how we initiate that, starting to the side, starting to the front, starting to the rear, how we change direction, and then our transition movements, which we do when we're actually waiting to react. Now, if we look at the quantity in the game, which ones of those do we do the most? I'd say we spend more time waiting to react. Rather than actual sprints. Which ones don't we train? The waiting to react. So that, again, is a kind of a dichotomy there. The things that we're doing the most, we're not actually practicing that much. This is one of the strange questions I ask. Everybody tells me, when I go in and talk to a team, what is the thing that if I could give you one physical capacity, you would take? And they say speed. Invariably they say speed. Then I ask them, okay, how many times a week do you actually move and focus specifically on high quality speed training? Guess what? They don't. Some weeks they do, some weeks they don't. That's not a consistent stimulus. We need a consistent stimulus. And we need this with young athletes as well. We need to teach young athletes to move, we need to give them the chances to move, and we need to do it frequently. Because quality practice is absolutely fundamental. Now, this is going to be a kind of little bit small for most people. But if we go into the theory of effective practice, what we see is it should be varied. It should be random. It should be progressive. It should be strategic. There should be mistakes being made. How much are we seeing that in our practice when we're just going from cone to cone? What progression can we have? Probably very little. As somebody's going through your ladder drills, what can you tell them? Faster. Faster. Is that enough? I'm not so sure, so we're going to have a look. So I'm talking about what I call a task-based approach, where we give challenges and then we let athletes figure out the ways. Now, does this mean I don't do sprint drills? Hell no. We do them all the time. We cannot be too good at basic acceleration. This supplements. This is where we start to take it. Because what it does, it helps me address more of those quality learning capacities. So our task-based approach is simply where we give movement-based challenges. How do we progress it? Well, we use what I call degrees of freedom. And all I do is, and I'll show you in a little bit, how we work on a basic pattern, and then we add a challenge. We'd add progressive challenges until it gets into a sports generic task, and ultimately into a sports specific task. But quite possibly the most important slide. The drill doesn't do the job. We've got to avoid the copying of drills approach, and we've got to get into the coaching of drills approach, where we're highlighting things to change. We're giving possible solutions and ultimately allowing athletes to figure things out. Right, that's the talking. Let's get some doing.